Jack Posobiec is a former Navy intel officer, TPUSA contributor. Bianca Rodriguez, a former deputy Hispanic communications director for the RNC. Good to have you both here. Jack, I want to start with you. Do you think we're about to completely reconfigure Latin America? Is it going to be, are we starting Venezuela, then Cuba, Colombia? Are we going to try and rid communism and this kind of activity from the Western Hemisphere?
Well, wouldn't I love to see that? Maybe Bukele could be the vassal head of the empire down there. No, I think what we're seeing here is a situation where President Trump and Secretary of State Rubio understand that this is about pushing not just communists out of power. So they've gone from Maduro, look at him. He went from seizing the means of production to being seized himself by Delta Force. They understand, though, that this isn't George W. Bush-style regime change where they're going to smash the entire government, get rid of all of the infrastructure, and try to rebuild this nation-building, democracy-building project like we saw in Iraq, like we saw in Afghanistan, failed policy 20 years. They are going to work with the infrastructure in place while they all know that those who are still there have the message of what happens if they step out of line.
Interesting. Bianca, this is a remarkably important moment, I think, for Americans to see as we have a Democrat Party that's trying to woo, I think, their base with ideas of collectivism and socialism. All of these ideas we're hearing the New York mayor talk about just the last couple of days. Complaints about cost of living and the crisis that they created and wanting to fix it with these kinds of ideas. To see what can happen to a country and to see it right in front of their face, to see Venezuelans by the millions celebrating the removal of this dictator that sold them all these promises of free things. How important is that for people here in this country to absorb?
It's very important. I mean, I think it's absolutely insane that this past weekend I saw fellow Puerto Ricans, I'm Puerto Rican myself, but I actually saw Puerto Ricans going out to the streets to protest what happened. Meanwhile, we had Venezuelans in Puerto Rico and just nationwide in Doral, Florida, especially celebrating what happened. And that really just goes to show how out of touch the average American, especially the liberal American in this country, is with the majority of Hispanic communities, but especially the Venezuelan community in this instance. And, I think it's perfect timing as well because Zoran Mamdani is now the newly elected socialist mayor of New York City. But at the same time, we're having Nicolas Maduro having his justice served in his own district, in his own backyard. And so I think we're going to see a lot of people hopefully wake up as we continue to talk about how relevant this threat of socialism is today, and just potentially wake up a lot more people to really just the consequences of this. It
really is something to have this all happening in New York City just days after Mamdani takes power. But Jack, the same question to you. I mean, what do you think when you see mostly white liberals in the streets protesting the arrest of this man? And they are oblivious to what he has done. They refuse to accept it. All they hear is his politics, and they find him to be a hero. That's just despicable.
Well, you hear so many of these same people are the ones that voted for Mamdani just a couple of months ago, and they're watching and cheering as he's sworn in. He calls it the warmth of collectivism. Why don't you go on down to Venezuela and ask them about the warmth of collectivism and how it's done since there? Venezuela, prior to the Bolivarian regime taking power in the late 90s and then really, really getting going after 2002, this was one of the most wealthy countries in all of Latin America. It was one of the most wealthy countries per capita in the entire world, was raking in the standard of living, you could put it up next to the United States of America, you could put it up next to Europe, and it was completely destroyed by the communists. You look at what's going on down there, basic supplies, food that they have issues with. This is the warmth of collectivism. And what do we know? We know that the exact same thing happens every single time it's tried, because this is what they do. From the communists in Russia to the communists in the Warsaw Pact to the communists in Spain, it always ends in millions dead. And if you don't believe me, go ask the Chinese, because the people of China will tell you what's happened with the Chinese Communist Party.
That's right. The warmth of collectivism. In Venezuela, it's 90 degrees. You have no AC. You have no water. It's very warm. The warmth of collectivism. All right, that's good. All right, Jack Posobiec, Bianca Rodriguez, thank you both so much. We appreciate it, guys. Everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.